Garbage piled up, people sleeping on the streets. Unfortunately, not uncommon sights along the sidewalks of Midtown. Well, now the mayor is announcing a new effort to clean up the area around Times Square. CBS 2's political.
So Midtown has been turning into a dump for years, but the current state of this place is exactly what happens when a city refuses to care for its homeless and allows crime to surge. And even though our leaders say they want to turn this sinking ship around, critics say the disaster you're about to see has been allowed to happen on purpose.
A business owner and a homeless person told me that this area is basically New York City's Skid Row. It is a visual that the mayor hopes to change.
I didn't see this what I see now. When I come in the morning, open the gates, 2-3 people sleeping here. I have to wake them up.
People who are homeless, sometimes they lay down on the street.
The crossroads of the world is in the crosshairs of Mayor Adams. He saw the same things captured by CBS 2 cameras. Piles of trash and litter, people sleeping on the street, building mini encampments, and seeking handouts.
We're dealing with uncleanliness. We're dealing with the overuse of mopeds and bikes that are everywhere. We're dealing with those who are under the influence.
It's such a problem, the mayor has launched a coalition of 20 city agencies to clean up Midtown. They'll canvass 35th to 45th streets.
I hope they crack down and make it a better place for the people who are legitimately working and doing a great job.
So New York City is moving heaven and earth to clean up Midtown. But what nobody's talking about is that every single thing the city says it now wants to clean up exists because of the city's own laws that don't lock up criminals or put people who sell things they shouldn't behind bars, which has led to two major problems, the first of which are unprovoked attacks on tourists and other passersby, seemingly for no reason at all, giving people the impression that this part of town is no longer safe. On top of that, the local CVS here in Midtown is unlike anything in the city, as it's got a security guard and more progressive plexiglass walling off products than any other drugstore in town. Because as you can imagine, shoplifting in a place with no rules whatsoever is pretty bad. Even at the 7-Eleven across the street, they've got the donuts locked up. And that's because laws in this state prevent people from getting sent to jail if they steal under $1,000 worth of stuff. That's just a misdemeanor. But if you think that's bad, put on your seatbelt, because there's now so much lawless activity in this neighborhood that some sidewalks are completely taken over by open-air markets selling counterfeit products, stolen products, all spread out on blankets that people can quickly wrap up. But perhaps saddest and most frighteningly of all, the reason we have a massive homeless problem here is because the city's shelter system is overburdened, and many of New York's unhoused don't feel safe in the places that the city has reserved for them, choosing instead to take their chances out on the streets or in our subways, which is incredibly disturbing. But it brings us to the real reason why we've got an insurmountable, irreversible disaster on our hands, and that's because the progressive policies that built this place, trash and crime included, aren't going anywhere as part of this cleanup process. Those are staying, which is why critics say the steps the city plans on taking over the next few weeks might end up making the entire situation here worse, if that's even possible. So take a look around. Here we are in the middle of the largest city in America that costs the most money every single year to run and operate. And even though there are less half-eaten peaches on the sidewalk, the amount of crime happening in this neighborhood, that hasn't disappeared.
I didn't see this what I see now.
Abdullah Abad has owned Abad Fabrics on 37th and 8th for over 40 years. He says he has never seen the city like this.
When I come in the morning, open the gates, 2-3 people sleeping here. I have to wake them up to open the gate.
Abad isn't alone. His neighbors are...
So can you imagine paying thousands of dollars in rent, thousands of dollars in taxes, yet on your way to your little store, you have to step over trash and weave your way through a maze of people doing things they probably shouldn't be doing? For years, that's been the reality many of the businesses in this neighborhood have been facing. And that's a massive problem because we're steps away from Times Square, yet there are businesses here that are closed because they don't have any foot traffic, they don't have any customers. Literally, a couple of blocks north, you've got the busiest place in the entire city, yet all of those people walking around spending money in that location are never ever going to make their way over here, and that is a huge problem. And when you add to that constant crime and thievery plaguing tourists, who's going to be in the mood to spend money at any of these places? And what can be done to stop places like this from shutting down permanently? Those are the questions people are asking, but the answers we're getting don't really look that great, because the same progressive leaders that got us into this mess in the minds of some people, they're now those who are tasked with cleaning it all up and fixing it.
We're dealing with the overuse of mopeds and bikes that are everywhere and parked in disarray. We're dealing with those who are under the influence.
And so along with Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, whose job will be to crack down on shoplifters and repeat offenders, the mayor established a new Midtown Community Improvement Coalition of city agents.
So Mayor Adams, he might be the face of all of the problems New York City has, but he didn't write the laws that allowed things to get this way by allowing crime and all of the issues this area is struggling with to persist unchecked. But what remains to be seen now is how Manhattan's progressive district attorney is going to tackle things like shoplifting and crime in this neighborhood. Because according to some, our district attorney Alvin Bragg has a reputation for being rather soft on crime and a history of dropping charges against violent offenders all over the city. Like the recent protests at Columbia that were so bad the school had to cancel its graduation this past year. And the asylum seekers that attacked the police this past winter, they were all released without bail, and they were recently given plea deals and sentences that some people think weren't harsh enough to send the right message to our criminals. But on the other hand, the DA's defenders will say that there are specific reasons why in specific cases charges were either dropped or downgraded or reduced, or why bail was never being sought. On top of that, although it is now the DA's job to prosecute crime in this area and clean it up, he didn't write the laws that release criminals, even if some people think he sympathizes with them. And it's also not his fault that we have laws that release shoplifters who are non-violent and steal under $1,000 worth of product and release them, even if it's not their first offense. But critics say that the DA's track record on prosecuting crime and the laws that we have tie his hands so much that anything he and the mayor try to do here isn't really going to have much of an effect. But as you're about to see, things get even worse.
It's such a problem, the mayor has launched a coalition of 20 city agencies to clean up Midtown. They'll canvass 35th to 45th streets, looking for ways to clean the streets and sidewalks and help those unhoused.
You can't just pick someone up because they are nodding, because they are, high on narcotics. You just can't arrest them. So it's a combination of enforcement.
So you've got to listen very carefully to what the mayor is saying about the issues that exist here and have persisted for a long time, allowing things to get to the point that they're at today. And it's pretty obvious that he knows some of the problems here won't go away anytime soon. Because this isn't a country where the mayor can just drive a truck down the street and round up people that he thinks are making the city look bad and bring them somewhere. It doesn't work like that. And a lot of the people here are victims of substances and other awful situations, and more should be done to help them in a humane way, and it's not. But if someone is caught selling something they shouldn't be selling, if they're caught parading around with a weapon, using it to intimidate people or to steal things, something can be done about that. Also, there are laws that allow the city to involuntarily commit someone who is a danger to themselves or others. Laws like that have been used to clean up the subway in recent months. But regardless, our leaders now claim that 20 different city agencies are now involved in the cleanup process for this particular neighborhood. 20 different agencies with multi-million-dollar budgets to do whatever was not happening here that allowed it to get here. How did that happen? Who's getting fired? Who will be held accountable? These are the questions that many people have because these agencies existed in the past. The problems we have exist today. What? It doesn't make any sense. Yet these agencies are now somehow up to the task of fixing all the problems we see here.
The visual is not good. During broad daylight, we saw countless homeless men roaming the streets. At night, the city is their campground. Tom Harris is with the Times Square Alliance.
A great number of people who come to Times Square form their opinion of the city when they get out at Penn Station, when they get out at...
Oh yeah, people are forming opinions all right, but they're not exactly going to be positive ones, especially if the person forming that opinion is a recent victim of robbery or assault up here. And that's such a shame because this really is the center of the city. We're right by the bus terminal that brings thousands of people here every single day in the cheapest manner possible. It's the cheapest way to see New York, take a bus. And then right over here you can see Madison Square Garden, which is next to Penn Station. That's how people get trains here. Yet it seems city officials are no longer pleased with the impression of the city that people have as soon as they get off their train or bus. But a clean, safe Midtown, it's not just good for business or commuters, it's also great for tourism because if this is what people see once they get here, it may end up setting the tone for their entire New York City experience, and that's what our officials and leaders are really worried about. And that's because now that the office sector in this area is pretty much done after 2020's remote work revolution, all the commuter traffic that used to exist here because of people that were coming to work is now gone. Tourist traffic's the last thing keeping this neighborhood on its feet. And that's likely to be the case for the foreseeable future as remote work's not going away anytime soon and tourist traffic still does exist in New York. But there's a shocking twist to this whole story that the city's critics are now jumping all over. A twist that fuels the fire in the belly of every critic that says the city's plans to fix this place will not work and cannot work no matter what they do. And once you hear hear what this is, some of you may end up losing your minds.
Today, I'm told that this program actually started in April, and some of the neighborhood groups say they've already seen some improvement. One other thing on the mayor's improvement list, he wants to work on 8th Avenue. He says there's been a lot of complaints about the narrowing.
Wow, so here you have two revelations that just might doom this entire plan. And the first of those is that this plan has been going on since April. That was 4 months ago, and this is the result of the plan? Critics say this means the 20 city agencies that are now in charge of fixing this place aren't really having the effect of 20 city agencies that are supposed to fix this place. Which brings us to the real problem with progressive solutions for progressive policies. Take a look at the whole crime issue. We've got stores around here getting looted every single day, and that's because we aren't punishing the criminals that we have running around out here who are doing the stealing. But according to decriminalization advocates, locking people up just makes the whole crime problem worse. So what exactly is their solution?
Is it just about putting more cops on the streets near Times Square?
So the mayor actually says it's more than that. He says you need to have the sanitation department to get rid of the trash.
Yeah.
You need to have the mental health department to come in and deal with the homeless.
Okay, so bringing in the mental health professionals, that's obviously a good idea, but how well can that be working if we still have the same problems today that we did 4 months ago when this whole thing kicked off? And sanitation, what exactly are they going to do? Just sweep the streets constantly and constantly pick up trash? That's a never-ending battle that you're going to lose. Yet it seems like that's exactly what's happening, because the only people out here doing anything that I've seen so far today are the folks who have this job, the toughest job in the city, of keeping the streets clean. And honestly, they're doing a great job. There's not garbage littering the streets like there was just a couple of weeks ago. But if that's all we're doing, will it be enough to get somebody to come over here and start a business in this storefront? And what about helping the homeless? Because as I've been out here today, I have seen many people who look as if they need assistance, yet I haven't seen any outreach workers interacting with anybody. It's just kind of being left as is. So the jury's still out on that one. And regarding the crime problem, even though we've got these laws that stop the hands of justice from really doing anything if they even want to, the mayor and the DA must have some sort of trick up their sleeve, some sort of loophole that they're going to use to get criminals off the streets, some technicality that exists that the criminals and the rest of society don't know about and obviously hasn't been used before to clean up areas of town like this one. But fascinatingly, the mayor keys in on another point that he says is contributing to all of the problems that we have here, and at first it seems very unrelated, but he mentioned it to both CBS and to Fox, which means he might be onto something.
But interestingly enough, he's also concerned about traffic congestion on 8th Avenue and the fact that there's double parking trucks and bike lanes and everything, and sometimes it's down to one lane. So he wants to bring...
This one is very interesting, and what the mayor's talking about is the redesign that you see out here of 8th Avenue that happened a few years ago. He's blaming this for a lot of the problems we have in the area because it's a poor design and it doesn't make any sense. In fact, look at this image from 2017. We used to have 5 lanes of traffic all headed north, plus a bike lane that was between a row of parked cars and the sidewalk. But look at the way the road is today. It has shrunk considerably. In fact, 2 of the lanes were removed. There's now way less space for cars to get through traffic. And look at this. You got somebody over here making a turn. He's holding up traffic. And behind him, you've got a massive truck, which is double parked. This whole redesign of the road is just an absolute disaster, and it's causing traffic congestion. And it's also created these non-sidewalk pathways that don't really have any purpose. Yes, people walk down them, people loiter in them, they collect trash and garbage because they're not really used for any specific purpose. And there's really no accommodating infrastructure in these spaces at all. There's no tables, there's no benches, not that you'd necessarily want them. In fact, the only thing you'll find in these walkways are these massive planters, which are just here so cars don't try to use them as a parking spot. But do you want to know why these seemingly purposeful traffic jams were created? Well, look no further than our congestion readers. These are tolls that are going to tax every single car on the road by charging everybody a fee to be in this part of town. And even though the congestion pricing system has now been placed on pause because of widespread outrage paused by the governor, as a matter of fact, the idea of having a toll on cars in this part of town has been on the table since 2007. And when you look at a road like this, it was obviously designed by somebody that hates cars or that doesn't drive a car or that understands that there will be taxes to lower congestion, and the worse you make the congestion, the more people will be begging for that tax. Because what else could possibly be the purpose of reducing the available road size for use cases that aren't as in demand as driving your car down the street? There's nobody in the bike lane right now. On top of that, there are very few places to park. This is a bus lane right here, and if there's nowhere to park, how are all the small struggling businesses here supposed to get deliveries from massive trucks like this? Where are they gonna put their truck without blocking the road, creating even more congestion in order to bring food into one of these little restaurants? How are they even gonna do that? They keep telling us that these bike-friendly green redesigns are good for the economy and that they're gonna help everybody make more money and live in a happy future, but that's not really happening here. It just makes things more expensive to operate. And as it turns out, these little pedal bikes, they're not gonna be able to deliver enough stuff to sustain a business and have that actually be affordable. Yet the probable solution to all of this double parking, all of this traffic jamming is probably just gonna be more tickets. But how is that gonna help New York City's homeless? How is that gonna stop our little stores and shops from getting looted by people who get released after they steal something and get arrested? How is it gonna make a dent in that? If those problems still exist, how are any of these beautification solutions, quality of life improvements gonna make a big difference? Yes, the streets are definitely cleaner, but it seems like all of the problems that caused a lot of the mess that we have here still exist and aren't being dealt with. How would you deal with them? What do you think the solution is for cleaning up Midtown Manhattan? Is it even possible, or do we need to change all of our laws around so that we can lock up the bad guys and help the good guys flourish? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.